My name is Kene. I am 19 years old, an Omega, and on the day my whole life changed, I was only trying to keep my new job for one more week. The Bell Kim mansion sat on a hill above Lagos like something from a dream. White walls, glass windows, a garden that smelled of jasmine and roasted plantain from the kitchen. I had been hired as a junior household aide 3 days before, and I still did not understand the rules. Rule number 1, said Mrs. Adiz, the head housekeeper, on my first morning. When the small bell rings from the east wing, you do not answer it. Why not? I asked. She lowered her voice like she was telling me a secret that could get her fired. That is young Master Dayo's room. He is blind, Kene. He is also an alpha, son of Oga Tae-jun, one of the twin CEOs. Nobody wants trouble from that family. Just let the bell ring. Someone senior will handle it. But nobody senior ever did. I noticed it on my second day. The little brass bell would ring. Once, twice, 3 times. And the maids would look at each other and keep folding towels. The drivers would keep washing cars. Even Mrs. Adiz would suddenly remember an errand in another building. Won't somebody go to him? I whispered to one of the maids, a woman named Beezy. She shrugged without looking up. He shouts at people. He is proud. He does not like help. Better to leave him. My chest tightened in a way I did not understand. I kept thinking about a person alone in a room, ringing a bell that nobody answers. On the third day, the bell rang for almost 5 minutes straight. I could not take it anymore. My hands were shaking, but my feet were already moving down the long hallway before my brain agreed to it. Mrs. Adiz called after me. Kene, come back here. That is not your. I did not stop. I knocked on the tall wooden door. No answer. Only the sound of something crashing to the floor inside. My heart slammed against my ribs. I pushed the door open. Who is that? A voice said. It was low, sharp, and tired all at once. If you're going to stand there and stare like everyone else, you can leave. The room was dim, curtains half drawn even though it was afternoon. A young man sat on the floor beside his overturned nightstand, papers scattered everywhere, his cane knocked out of reach. His dark eyes did not focus on anything, but somehow, when he turned his face toward me, it felt like he was looking straight through my chest. I froze. I had never seen anyone so beautiful and so alone at the same time. I asked who you are, he said again, quieter now, like the anger was running out of him. My name is Kene, I said. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. I'm new. I heard your bell. Everyone hears my bell, he said bitterly. Nobody comes. Something in my chest cracked open. Without thinking, I walked further into the room and knelt down beside him, picking up his cane first and placing it gently into his hand. His fingers brushed mine for half a second. It was nothing, barely a touch, but heat rushed up my arm like I had grabbed a live wire. I pulled back too fast, my ears burning. You're still here, he said, surprised. His head tilted slightly, as if he could hear my heartbeat from where he sat. Maybe he could. Alphas had sharp senses. I had read that somewhere. Should I not be? I asked. For the first time, something that was almost a smile touched the corner of his mouth. No. Stay a little longer. Nobody stays. I helped him gather his papers, my hands trembling the whole time. Not from fear anymore, but from something else, something warmer and far more dangerous. I told myself it was only kindness. I told myself I would forget this the moment I walked out that door. I did not believe myself even then. What's your name again? He asked as I stood to leave. Kene. Kene, he repeated, like he was testing the shape of it in his mouth. I'm Dayo. I know who you are, young master. Don't call me that. His voice hardened again, but not unkindly. Everyone calls me that. I'm sick of it. Then what should I call you? He tilted his face toward me again, and for one long moment, neither of us said anything. Just Dayo, he finally said. At least when it's only us. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. I opened my mouth to answer, and that was the exact moment the door slammed open behind me. Kene, Mrs. Adiz's voice cracked through the room like a whip. Get out here this instant. Do you know whose room you just walked into without permission? Behind her stood a tall, broad-shouldered man in an expensive black suit, his eyes cold as steel, staring directly at me like I had committed a crime. It was Oga Tae-jun, Dayo's father, one of the twin alpha CEOs, and he did not look happy to find me there. I could not breathe. Oga Tae-jun's eyes moved slowly from me to his son, then back to me again, like he was solving a puzzle he did not like the answer to. Who let a junior staff member into my son's private quarters? His voice was calm, but calm in the way a knife is calm before it cuts. Papa. Dayo's voice came from behind me, steady and clear despite everything. He answered my bell. Nobody else has, in 3 years. I don't see the crime in that. Mrs. Adi's hands were shaking. Sir, I told him the rules. I promise you I. It's fine, Adi's. Oga Taejun did not raise his voice, but the room seemed to shrink around his words. Leave us. She practically ran from the room. I wanted to run too, but my legs would not move. Oga Taejun studied me the way you study something you are deciding whether to keep or throw away. You're new, he said. What's your name? Keen, sir, I said, bowing my head the way I had been taught. My whole body was trembling, but underneath the fear, something stubborn kept my spine straight. Keen. He said my name the same way his son had, but it sounded like a thread in his mouth. You are an Omega. It wasn't a question. My scent probably gave it away the second he walked in. Omegas could never fully hide what we were, not from an alpha as powerful as him. Yes, sir. Then you understand why this is a problem. I did understand. In families like the Bell Kims, alpha sons were promised to Omega families through business alliances, not through household staff who answered bells out of stubborn kindness. I understood exactly what he was warning me about, even without him saying it out loud. Papa, Dayo said again, sharper this time. He was helping me. That's all. Stop making it into something it isn't. I am not making it into anything, his father said. I am simply making sure it does not become something. He turned back to me. Keen, you will continue your duties as assigned. You will not enter this wing again unless specifically instructed. Is that clear? My throat felt tight, but I forced the words out. Yes, sir. He left without another word, his footsteps fading down the hallway like distant thunder. The silence after he left felt heavier than his presence had. I'm sorry, Dayo said quietly. He's like that with everyone. It's not about you. It's fine, I lied. My hands were still shaking. It's not fine. His voice softened in a way I hadn't heard yet. You're the first person in 3 years who walked toward my bell instead of away from it. I don't want that to cost you your job. My chest ached at that, a strange mixture of sadness and something warmer I still refused to name. It won't, I said, though I had no idea if that was true. I should have left then. I should have gone back to folding towels and forgotten the whole thing, the way Beezy warned me to. But instead, I found myself lingering by the door. Dayo, I said, testing his name the way he had tested mine. He turned toward my voice immediately, like a flower turning toward sunlight. Yes. How did it happen? If you don't mind me asking. Your eyes. For a long moment he said nothing, and I thought I had overstepped. Then he spoke, quiet and far away. Car accident. 4 years ago. My mother didn't survive it. I did, but... He gestured vaguely toward his own face. Not all of me came back. My chest cracked open all over again. I'm so sorry. Everyone's sorry, he said, but there was no bitterness in it this time, only tiredness. You're the first person who asked instead of just pretending it never happened. I did not know what to say, so I said nothing, and somehow that felt like the right answer, because he smiled. A small, real smile, the kind that made my stomach flip in a way I had never felt before. Keen, he said again, like he liked saying it. Will you come back? Even if my father says not to. My heart was screaming at me to say no. My job, my safety, everything told me to say no. I'll try, I whispered instead. That night, lying in my small staff quarters, I could not stop replaying the sound of his voice saying my name. I told myself over and over that this was foolish, that alphas like him were not meant for omegas like me, that his father had made that painfully clear. But 3 days later, when the little brass bell rang from the east wing, I was already halfway down the hallway before I even realized I was moving. And that was when I saw Beezy standing outside his door, her arms crossed, a look on her face that made my stomach drop. Keen, she said slowly. We need to talk. Before you go in there and ruin everything. What do you mean? I asked, my hand still frozen on the door handle. Beezy glanced down the hallway to make sure we were alone before pulling me a few steps away. People are talking, Keen. About you going to his room every day. About how long you stay. My face went hot. I only help him with small things. Reading his messages, guiding him to the garden. That's all it is. That's not what it looks like, she said, not unkindly. And in this house, what it looks like matters more than what it is. Mrs. Adiz already got questioned by the head of security. If Oga Taejun hears more rumors, you could lose your job. Or worse. I swallowed hard. I knew she was right. I knew every rule I was breaking just by standing outside this door. But then the bell rang again, softer this time, almost hesitant, like he somehow knew I was hesitating too. I have to go, I whispered. Beezy sighed and stepped aside, shaking her head. Just be careful. Please. Inside, Dayo was sitting by the window, his face turned toward the sunlight, even though he could not see it. I heard voices outside, he said. Was that Beezy? Yes. I did not want to lie to him. Not about this. People are talking about us. He was quiet for a moment. Does that bother you? It should, I admitted, sitting down across from him. But it doesn't, not as much as it probably should. A small smile crossed his lips. Come with me. I want to show you something. He stood and reached for his cane, but instead of using it right away, he held his hand out toward me instead, uncertain, like he wasn't sure I would take it. My heart slammed against my chest. I stared at his outstretched hand for what felt like a full minute before I finally slipped my fingers into his. His hand was warm, larger than mine, steady despite everything. The moment our palms touched, something electric shot up my arm, and I swore I heard him inhale sharply too. This way, he said, his voice a little rougher than before. He led me. Or maybe I led him. I could not tell anymore. Through a side door into a small private garden I had never seen, hidden behind a wall of hibiscus flowers. Nobody else came here, he explained. It was the one place in the whole mansion that felt like it belonged only to him. My mother planted these, he said, running his fingers along a petal. I can't see them anymore, but I remember the colors. Red, orange. She used to describe them to me even before the accident, said I should learn to see with more than my eyes. I watched him standing there in the fading light, his face turned toward flowers he could not see, and something in my chest ached so deeply it almost hurt to breathe. They're beautiful, I said quietly. The flowers. Just like she described, I imagine. He turned toward me, and for a long moment, neither of us moved. I knew, somehow, that if I leaned forward even an inch, something would change between us forever. My whole body wanted to. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. Keen, he said softly. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you come back? That first day, my father basically threatened you. Anyone else would have stayed away. I thought about lying, about giving him some safe, simple answer. But looking at him standing there in the dying light, vulnerable and honest in a way I don't think he let many people see, I couldn't do it. Because nobody deserves to be ignored, I whispered. Especially not you. His breath caught. His hand, still holding mine, tightened just slightly. Keen eye. The sound of footsteps crunching on gravel made us both freeze. I pulled my hand back so fast I nearly stumbled, my heart hammering with panic. There you two are, said a voice from the garden entrance. It was not Oga Taejun this time. It was his twin brother, Oga Taeho, and beside him stood an elegant young man I had never seen before, dressed in clothes far too expensive for a simple house visit, watching Dayo with an unreadable expression. Dayo, Oga Taeho said, his voice smooth as silk, but with an edge underneath it. I'd like you to meet someone. This is Junsu. His family runs one of the largest Omega trading houses in Seoul. He smiled, but his eyes flicked toward me with something cold and calculating. We've arranged for him to stay with us for a while, he continued. Your father, and I think it's time you two got to know each other properly. My stomach dropped straight to the ground. Junsu was beautiful in the way expensive things are beautiful, polished, careful, untouchable. He bowed politely toward Dayo, though Dayo could not see the gesture, and his scent, even from where I stood, was rich and deliberate, the kind trained Omegas were taught to carry. It's an honor to finally meet you, Dayo SSI, Junsu said, his voice smooth. I've heard so much about you. Dayo's jaw tightened. I wasn't told anyone was coming today. Your father thought it best not to make a fuss, Oga Taeho said smoothly. Junsu will be staying in the guest wing for the next few weeks. Consider it a chance to get acquainted before the engagement is finalized. The word engagement hit me like a slap. I saw Dayo's hand curl into a fist at his side. Nobody discussed an engagement with me. It was discussed with your father, Oga Taeho said simply, as if that settled everything. You know how these things work, Dayo? Business alliances are not built on whims. Junsu's family has waited a long time for this connection. I stood frozen at the edge of the garden, painfully aware of how insignificant I must have looked to them. A junior household aide standing beside the future of a powerful company. Junsu's eyes finally settled on me, sharp and assessing. And who is this? Nobody, Dayo said quickly, too quickly, and even though I understood why, the word still landed somewhere tender in my chest. Just staff. I told myself it did not hurt. I told myself I understood he was protecting me. But something inside me went quiet and small anyway. I should get back to my duties, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, and I turned and walked away before anyone could stop me. I did not look back, but I heard Dayo call my name once, soft and uncertain, swallowed quickly by his uncle's voice continuing the conversation. That night I could not sleep. I lay on my narrow bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the word nobody over and over in my mind, telling myself it was foolish to feel this way about someone I had known for barely 2 weeks. He was an alpha heir. I was hired help. There had never been a version of this story where it ended any other way. 3 days passed, and I did not go near the East Wing. I told myself it was for the best. Beezy seemed relieved. Mrs. Adiz stopped watching me with suspicion. Everything, on the surface, went back to normal. But the little brass bell rang every single day, and every single day, nobody answered it, and every single day, my chest ached a little more. On the 4th day, I found a note slipped under my door. My hands shook as I opened it. Keen, I didn't mean it the way it sounded. Please come back. I need to explain. D. I stared at the note for a long time. Then I folded it carefully and hid it under my pillow, and I told myself, one more time, that this was foolish. But that evening, when I passed the garden on an errand, I heard voices, Dayo's, low and frustrated, and Junsu's, calm and patient. You don't have to force this, Junsu was saying gently. I can see it, you know. The way you talk when his name comes up. My breath caught. I should have kept walking. Instead, I stopped just behind the hibiscus wall, unable to move. It doesn't matter how I feel, Dayo said, his voice rough. My father has already decided. Kim deserves better than to be caught in the middle of this. And what about what you deserve? Junsu asked quietly. There was a long silence. I don't know anymore, Dayo finally admitted, so quiet I almost missed it. I just know that for the first time since the accident, someone looked at me and didn't see something broken. And now I might lose that because of a business deal I never agreed to. My chest ached so fiercely I had to press a hand against the wall to stay upright. Every part of me wanted to walk around that hedge and tell him I was there, that I had heard everything, that I felt exactly the same. But footsteps approached from the other direction. Oga Taejun's unmistakable, measured stride, and I ducked away just in time, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. I did not know, yet, that the next morning would bring a decision that would tear everything apart. Mrs. Adiz found me before breakfast, her face unusually gentle, which frightened me more than anger would have. Keen, she said softly. Come with me. Oga Taejun wants to see you. My stomach dropped into my shoes. I followed her down the long hallway toward the study, my mind racing through every possible reason, none of them good. Oga Taejun sat behind a large wooden desk, his face unreadable. He did not ask me to sit. Keen, he said, you have been a good worker. Punctual. Respectful. Thank you, sir, I said carefully, waiting for the blow I could feel coming. There is a position opening at our sister property in Abuja, he continued. Better pay. More responsibility. I think it would suit you well. My heart clenched. Sir, with respect, is this about your son? His eyes sharpened slightly, the only sign that my question had landed. It is about what's best for everyone involved. My son has an important engagement approaching. He does not need distractions. Am I a distraction, sir? Or a threat? The words slipped out before I could stop them, bolder than I had ever been with him. For a moment, something almost like respect flickered across his face, quickly buried again. You are a kind young man, Keen, he said finally. That is precisely the problem. Dayo has spent 4 years believing himself unlovable because of what he lost. And then you walked in, and for the first time, he started hoping again. Do you understand what happens if that hope is built on something that cannot last? My throat tightened. Why can't it last? Because the world we live in does not bend for feelings, he said, not unkindly, but with finality. It bends for alliances, for contracts, for family names. I am trying to protect my son from a heartbreak that is, frankly, inevitable. I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream that he was wrong, that feelings mattered more than contracts, that Dayo deserved to choose his own heart. But looking at the tired weight behind his eyes, a father who had already lost his wife, terrified of losing his son to more pain, I understood, even as it broke something inside me, that he believed he was doing the right thing. The transfer starts tomorrow, he said gently. A car will take you in the morning. I left his study in a daze, my whole body numb. I should have gone straight to my room. Instead, my feet carried me, one last time, toward the east wing. Dayo was sitting exactly where I had first found him, by the window, his face turned toward light he could not see. Keen, he said the second I stepped inside, his head snapping toward the door. I can smell you're upset. What happened? I could not hold back the tears anymore. I'm being transferred. Tomorrow morning. Abuja. He stood so fast his chair scraped against the floor. What? Why? Did my father? He thinks it's for the best, I said, my voice cracking. He thinks he's protecting you from getting hurt. He doesn't get to decide that for me. Dayo's voice rose, raw and furious in a way I had never heard from him. Not again. Not after everything he's already decided for me since the accident. Dayo. No. He crossed the room toward me, guided only by memory and the sound of my breathing, until he was standing close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off him. His hand found my face, gentle and searching, his thumb brushing my cheek where a tear had fallen. Keen, tell me the truth. Do you want to go? My whole body was trembling. No, I whispered. I don't want to go anywhere. Then don't. It's not that simple. Your father. I don't care what my father wants right now, he said fiercely. I care about what I want. And for the first time in 4 years, I know exactly what that is. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my chest. Dayo, if I stay, it could ruin everything for you. The engagement. Your family's business. I can't be the reason you lose all of that. You're not the reason I might lose anything, he said softly, his forehead nearly touching mine now. You're the reason I finally have something worth fighting for. Before I could answer, the door burst open behind us, and Junsu's voice cut sharply through the room. Dayo, you need to come now. It's your father. There's been an emergency at the Seoul office, and he's asking for you immediately. The car ride to the airport felt like it lasted 100 years. Oga Taejun had collapsed in his office an hour earlier. Exhaustion, the doctor said later, pushed too far by stress and grief he had buried for years without rest. He was stable, but he was being flown to a specialist hospital in Seoul immediately, and the entire household scrambled in emotion. I was not supposed to go. I was staff, and staff did not accompany the family on emergencies. But Dayo refused to leave without me. If Keen doesn't come, I don't go either, he said flatly to his uncle, standing firm despite the chaos around him. I need someone I trust to describe things to me. Someone who tells me the truth. Oga Taeho looked like he wanted to argue, but there was no time, and something in Dayo's voice left no room for negotiation. So there I was, sitting beside him on a private plane bound for Seoul, my hand gripping his the entire flight because he asked me to, quietly, so no one else would hear. Talk to me, he said somewhere over the ocean, his voice tight with fear he was trying to hide. Please. About anything. I need to not think about what's waiting for us. So I told him about my childhood in Enugu, about my mother's cooking, about the sound of rain on our old zinc roof. I told him things I had never told anyone, and somewhere in the middle of it, I realized his thumb was tracing slow, absent circles against the back of my hand, like he needed the anchor of my skin to stay calm. Keen, he said quietly, when I finally paused. I need to tell you something, and I need you to actually listen, not argue with me. Okay. I don't care about the engagement. I never did. My uncle arranged it because he thinks stability means contracts and bloodlines. But I've been thinking about what stability actually feels like, and it's this. He squeezed my hand. It's you, sitting beside me, telling me true things instead of pretty lies. That's the only stability I've felt since the accident. My chest ached with so much feeling I could barely breathe. Dayo, your father is in the hospital. Now isn't the time. It's exactly the time, he said fiercely. Because watching my father collapse today reminded me how short everything is. I don't want to waste whatever time I have pretending I don't feel what I feel. I did not answer, but I did not pull my hand away either. At the hospital, we found Oga Taejun awake but pale, hooked to machines that beeped steadily in the sterile room. When he saw Dayo, something in his hardened face cracked. "You came," he said weakly. "Of course I came." Dayo sat beside the bed, finding his father's hand by instinct. "You scared me, Papa." "I'm sorry." Oga Taejun's eyes shifted toward me, standing quietly by the door. "Keen, you're here too." "I asked him to come," Dayo said, before I could speak. "Papa, I need to say something, and I need you to actually hear it this time." His father was quiet, watching him carefully. "I don't want the engagement with Junsu," Dayo continued, his voice steady despite everything. "Not because he isn't kind. He is, and I respect him. But because my heart already belongs to someone else, and pretending otherwise isn't protecting me from heartbreak. It's just delaying it." The room was silent except for the steady beep of the machines. "You almost died today," Dayo said, softer now. "And all I could think about, sitting in that plane, terrified, was that I might lose you without ever telling you the truth. I love him, Papa. I love Keen. And I'm done being afraid to say it just because it doesn't fit into a contract." I stood frozen by the door, tears sliding silently down my face, my heart so full it physically hurt. Oga Taejun looked at his son for a long, long moment, something unreadable passing behind his tired eyes. Then, slowly, he turned his gaze toward me. "Keen," he said, his voice hoarse but gentler than I had ever heard it. "Come here." My legs shook as I crossed the room. "I made a mistake," he said quietly, "trying to protect my son by controlling his heart. I did the same thing my own father did to me, and I swore I never would. I'm sorry." "Sir, you don't have to." "Let me finish," he said, raising a weak hand. "I watched my brother arrange this engagement out of fear disguised as duty. But watching my son fight for you, the way he just did, in the middle of nearly losing me, that told me everything I needed to know." He looked between the two of us, and for the first time since I had met him, something like warmth touched his tired face. "Take care of him," he said to me. "And Dayo, take care of your heart. It's the bravest thing you've done since the accident." Dayo's breath caught, and beside me, I felt his hand find mine again, trembling with relief. We still had one more conversation ahead of us, with Junsu, with the family, with the whole complicated world waiting outside that hospital door. But for the first time since I had walked into that East Wing and answered a bell nobody else would, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this story could actually have a happy ending. Junsu took the news better than I expected. We met him the following week, back in Lagos, in the same hidden garden where Dayo had first held my hand. He listened quietly as Dayo explained everything. The truth about his feelings, the engagement he could not honor, the apology he owed a good man who deserved honesty instead of obligation. When Dayo finished, Junsu was quiet for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. "I suspected as much," he said gently. "The way you spoke about him, even when you tried not to. I would rather build my own life around someone who chooses me completely than settle for someone whose heart is already given away." He looked at me, and there was no bitterness in his eyes, only quiet understanding. "Take care of him, Keen. He's stubborn, but he's worth it." "I know," I said softly, and for the first time, I let myself smile without guilt. The weeks that followed were not easy. There were still hard conversations, with Oga Taeho, who needed time to accept that alliances could not always be built on contracts, with the staff, who slowly stopped whispering and started, instead, to smile whenever they saw us together, with my own heart, which still sometimes could not believe any of this was real. But every single day, the little brass bell in the East Wing still rang. And every single day, I still answered it. Not out of duty anymore, but because I wanted to. Because somewhere between reading his messages and guiding him through gardens he could not see, I had fallen in love with a man who taught me that sight was never really the thing that mattered most. One evening, months later, we sat together in that same hidden garden, hibiscus flowers blooming red and orange around us exactly the way his mother used to describe them. "Keen," Dayo said, reaching for my hand the way he always did now, easy and certain. "Do you remember the first day you walked into my room?" "I remember everything," I whispered. "I thought you were just being kind," he said. "I didn't know you were about to become the reason I learned how to hope again." My eyes filled with tears, the good kind this time. "You were never broken, Dayo." Everyone else just stopped looking closely enough to see that. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing the gentlest kiss against my knuckles, and even that small touch sent warmth flooding through my entire chest. "Stay with me," he said quietly. "Not as staff, not as a secret. Just stay, Keen. For real this time." "I already have," I said, my voice breaking with happiness. "From the very first bell." He smiled. The real smile. The one that had first cracked open my heart in that dim East Wing room. And somewhere behind us, faintly, carried on the evening breeze, I swore I could hear that same brass bell ringing once more, gentle and soft, like it was finally answered for good. And what do you think? If this love story between Kene and Dayo touched your heart, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment about your favorite part of this beautiful couple's journey. Your support means the world to us.